Meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Muriel Bowser, she is the mayor of D.C. and showed up for a briefing yesterday on the surge in federal law enforcement resources over the last 3 weeks and how that has positively impacted her fair community. Interesting. Concluding with quite a revelatory observation for her.
And we greatly appreciate the surge of officers that enhance what MPD has been able to do in this city. The most significant thing that we are highlighting today is the area of crime that was most troubling for us in 2023. Now, we have driven it down over the last years, but I'm going to get my glasses so I can make sure I can see it correctly.
Yeah, we'll wait.
But for carjackings, the difference between this period, this 20-day period of this federal surge and last year represents a 87% reduction in carjackings in Washington, D.C. We know that when carjackings go down, when the use of gun goes down, when homicide or robbery go down, neighborhoods feel safer and are safer. So this surge has been important to us for that reason.
That is quite an insight. When crime goes down, neighborhoods are safer. Right. Now she's starting to get it. Starting to get the feel for this game here. Yeah, you reduce crime, neighborhoods are safer. And people feel safer, because they are. Thank you. But the federal law enforcement piece, so the surge of law enforcement resources over the last 3 weeks has helped considerably. Interestingly, because resources being stretched in Minneapolis, have they ever recovered from the meltdown of their police department in the wake of the George Floyd riots? The abdication of a police precinct? One of the darkest moments in American history, seeing police in a major city give up a police precinct to the mob. Minneapolis, which is quickly becoming Mogadishu, but that's another topic. The local Fox affiliate in Minneapolis talking about the response to the Catholic school church shooting yesterday may have been impeded a bit because resources are stretched, and turns out there's a lot of violence in Minneapolis, too.
On its tactical vest, which it doesn't necessarily mean a lot. Sometimes the FBI is called in to help and things like this. I will say throughout the morning, we've been following a violent night overnight in Minneapolis. So we know already that Minneapolis police were pretty strapped. They responded to at least another deadly shooting in downtown Minneapolis earlier this morning. No indication that any of that is connected to what's going on here, but just gives you an idea of this city's resources and how they've been using those. They also dealt with a shooting involving 7 victims earlier yesterday, another fatal last night around 8 o'clock. So it could be that a lot of this help is being called in just to alleviate some of the busyness, I guess, that you could say that Minneapolis police are under.
Yeah, I'd say there was another mass shooting where 7 people were hit. Yeah, I would say that eats up police resources. Maybe Trump should put Minneapolis on his list. For more on this, James Fitzgerald joins us, retired FBI special agent and criminal profiler from the Unabomber case, now co-host of the Cold Red podcast, which is on Spotify, Apple, and all the podcast platforms. He's also the author of the A Journey to the Center of the Mind memoir series. And by the way, the Unabomber case, he was featured, played by Sam Worthington, which was a really good series, really entertaining. what's it called? Manhunt? I'm going by memory now. It's a couple years old. I think it was Manhunt. James, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, Dan, great being on. Yeah, it was Manhunt Unabomber. And just real quick here, the Bowser from Sha Na Na used to be my favorite.
Yes,
Bowser.
yes.
But the D.C. mayor is coming close.
She did not have a pack of cigarettes rolled up in her sleeve while she offered those comments. But, yeah, she's starting to put the pieces together that law enforcement resources can really do a number on crime at the local level.
Yeah, they call it a surge, but by whatever name, it does definitely seem to be working in D.C. I know a police supervisor in the Metro PD, that's the D.C. PD, and I've been in discussion with him, and he loves it. He first time he feels safe he's a tough guy cop. He's not afraid to do his job, but he goes every call now. There's like 5 people with him, one from ICE, one from the FBI, I think Secret Service, and they even have lawyers traveling with them so they can make decisions, like I guess DOJ lawyers right on the street. Yeah, arrest him. Yeah, arrest her. So it's really quite each patrol car is like a mini task force, and he's loving it. His colleagues love it. They go into some neighborhoods, people come out and applaud them, and so it's working on every single level, except if you watch some of the media legacy people and the professional pundits, with their profundity. That escapes me to this point in time. But it is working, and that's the good news. Maybe it is needed in some other cities.
Yeah, I was going to say we would, some of us, not all of us, not many of us in public office in Chicago and Illinois, apparently, but a lot of us plebes would like to see the same collaboration here. We're certainly not going to get collaboration with ICE. That's off the table. And it doesn't look like we're going to get collaboration with any desire of the president to federalize the National Guard and deploy it to Chicago. But what is your perspective on that, where you have at least some of the people, and interestingly, people in the most afflicted neighborhoods when it comes to violent crime, saying, yes, whatever resources are available, I'd love to see them come to my neighborhood to make it safer. The local political leadership not responding similarly, and then it's a decision for the president whether or not to take on the criminals in the city as well as the sort of political criminals in public office.
Well, when you think about it, it's essentially Darwinism, survival of the fittest, and whatever way you can help your tribe, your clan, your own person survive, you should be in favor of that. And people are getting bumped off. I don't know the exact numbers in D.C., but certainly several murders a week. Last I checked, it's been almost 2 weeks there without a homicide. So, of course, the people that live through it and who truly want to survive, be it from a Darwinistic perspective or not, they love seeing these other people there. And no one's getting, scooped up and maybe illegals if they come upon them, and certainly criminals, but no other law-abiding citizens have to worry about that. And, I was in the FBI, and we had joint task forces with the NYPD and other police departments, other federal agencies, and they worked together great. And it wasn't always for patrol purposes in which I was involved with them, but I know in the past during certain riot situations, that's how it worked out. And it eventually quelled the riots and the disturbances, whatever was happening. We just saw it in L.A. back in June or so. So, of course, this notion works, but I think because it's attached to the word Trump adjacent, as they would like to say, It automatically has to be seen as oppression, tyranny, authoritarianism, and of course it has to be, orange man bad, so any idea by him is bad, even if it means demonstrably, quantitatively proving it's saving lives. That's not good enough. And really, the ones usually dying, there are exceptions. It's usually black on black crime. And guess what? At least in D.C. for the last almost 2 weeks, no black people have died. You think that would be a really great thing for the pundits to celebrate? But now, I guess black lives don't really matter when politics are involved.
Yeah. The argument, we heard it on this show earlier from a state legislator here, is, he's trying to middle the issues, like everybody should collaborate. So he's open-minded to the National Guard being added to the effort here. but everybody should collaborate. Well, okay, well, what happens when the locals don't want to collaborate for political reasons? Well, we need a plan. And the problem is we don't have a plan. And so we don't know how the National Guard would interact with police. I mean, is that really a problem? I mean, the leadership of the National Guard, is there something to be afraid of with respect to the National Guard? You're telling me the police chief in Chicago and the head of whatever National Guard deployment may come won't sit down and figure out who's going to do what and where the lines of demarcation are, just like ICE is doing right now with city police departments like Chicago that are not allowed by law to cooperate with them?
No, they could formulate an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, which other task forces of which I was a part had those set up, and they could do that in 10 minutes and put that together. It's not the men and the women in the lower ranks, the worker bees, and probably not even the top of the National Guard. I don't think that's political in most military units, but certainly chiefs of police, commissioners, superintendents, whatever their title, they're the ones that get caught up in the political aspect of things, and they have to do what the mayor tells them because, of course, they're appointed. Sheriffs are different because they're elected by the people. You don't see, ironically, where sheriffs are in charge, you don't have the problems that are happening to these larger cities where the mayor appoints the chief of police for whatever political reason they're put in that position. So, this would be a very simple process. The National Guard could really just their job, they don't, unless they're deputized with arrest powers and all, they could really just, station themselves at certain intersections, certain high crime areas, and let the regular police officers go in, and they can spread out and get the ancillary crime going on, and pick and choose that way, and have a better response time to the calls. Sometimes these shots fired, it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, probably even longer in Chicago until officers even show up. So, this would be a very easy team effort to put together, and it's almost like an all-star team. Give them a few practices, NBA, whatever, and they're going to gel pretty well. Let them meet each other, have some joint training session over the course of a day or two, and they're ready to hit the streets and stop crime. But for whatever reason, politicians, some of them, don't like this, and it's a sad story.
I wanted to get your take on the Minneapolis Catholic school church shooting yesterday. So just refresh our recollection. The FBI is there now, was there, basically immediately. And so what happens now in the wake of something like this? Give us, some insight into the process of what the FBI does to try to tackle the situation and identify the motivation and go from there.
Well, this is a state crime. The Minneapolis PD or whatever county that is, but certainly, state prosecutors will be the one. Well, if the shooter was alive, they'd be the one running this case. And they are running the investigation now. Last I heard, there were 4 search warrants being served, one on the church, which is very routine to have a search warrant, even for the crime scene. This covers all their bases down the line. And at least 3 residents associated with this shooter. And you know me, Dan, I never mention the name of these shooters or these killers on the media.
I try to do the same.
Everyone knows we're talking about him or her, depending on what media outlet you read.
It's him here.
But,
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not even sure he knew what he was, but we can come back to that. But yeah. So the FBI, they will be reviewing some of the documents. They will be lending, assistance. They can come in with different teams that help set up computer databases that they can put everything in there. And they may be helping the local PD doing some interviews of family, but it's really being run by the local PD. I mean, I was in the middle of the D.C. sniper case 25 years ago. I cover that in detail in my latest book. Thanks for mentioning A Journey to the Son of the Mind, book 4. And although every alphabet agency in D.C. was helping out by the second week, it was still Montgomery County, Maryland Police Department running the show. And, of course, that's what we're happening here. 2 different cases, I know, but they're running the show here. So FBI, ATF, they'll be tracing guns, who bought them, ammunition, and what kind of practice ranges did he go to, and they'll figure those things out. But this is essentially a state case. They may work in coordination with the profilers and other FBI personnel to put together some sort of behavioral assessment of this person. It's not a profile once the person's identified. So they'll work hand in hand, and they'll do the right job. Again, the worker bees will get together fine. We'll see what the bosses up the top say. If some conclusion comes out that they don't like reading, and we'll see what's redacted from the report then, which, knowing Minneapolis and the current FBI, which I think is being run relatively well, they're if it's put out there some things that are not favorable to certain political causes, the Minneapolis people may want that report redacted or not released, like they tried to hide the Nashville manifesto, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
Yeah. Speaking of that, so Nashville Covenant School, Colorado Springs in 2022, Denver, Colorado in 2019, Aberdeen, Maryland in 2018, Texas ICE agents ambushed in 2025, all trans assailants, people identifying as trans. At some point, does the FBI get into the business of trying to profile within a particular community people that are prone to, again, small segment, I get it, but once you see it repeat itself enough times, a small percentage of a relatively big number can be a relatively big problem. Any sort of profiling of a particular demographic when it comes to incidents that have similarities over the course of several years and including several incidents?
Well, let me answer it this way. Prior to this January of 2025, no, the FBI would have stayed away from that, or very cautiously and
quietly,
very cautiously keep that language out of it. I would like to think today's FBI, and I know people in it, and you would have an objective. That's what we want: objective, unbiased report. And I think anytime there is one segment of society that is doing these killings, we heard, for the last 4 years, 2021 to 2025 early, that white supremacists and toxic white males were the causes of all these problems. Well, this was a white male that shot yesterday, but this person falls into a whole different subcategory of the trans community. So absolutely, this should be studied. And as I said, I was on with Laura Ingraham last night, and I was saying, I think I used to always talk about, the kind of the bench plate material or options of like doing a psychological autopsy, behavioral analysis of the person, interview all these people from his past. But what I really want to see when these shooters from this point on, I want to see the physical autopsy. I want to get a toxicological report of his, not just his blood right now, but I want to go back to his childhood, and I want to find out every single drug this person's on. And Dan, I think on your program, I mentioned this before, but I think there's some kind of a dangerous porridge that we're putting into these kids today. And you mix in the internet and gaming and, dark web, all these other factors. And there is something that's destroying brain synapses one way or the other. Legal drugs, illegal. Are we talking Ritalin back in the day? Are we talking pot smoking? Are we talking even some of these vaccines untested, certainly in the last 5 years or so? I would want to get a complete picture. Of course, of all these types of young male shooters that, come from, at least on the surface, decent backgrounds. They're not growing up, in some, a shanty somewhere with no money, and they're stealing just to feed themselves. This kid was, apparently raised in Minneapolis with the burbs from yesterday, and, 6 or 7, I think 6 siblings. And I mean, where did that go wrong? And I also said last night, Dan, that fathers have to take more of a role in their lives. And there's too many fathers. I even made the comparison. We hear about the black community and lack of fathers, and that may be legit, and that's another discussion. But I think there's some white fathers in that community who just don't know how to say no to their kids, or they're letting their wives run, and then the mothers run the show. Nothing wrong with that. But for young men, they need fathers to say, hey, no, you're not doing that. Maybe grab the kid by a collar once in a while, walk him to his bedroom, sit him down, and say, all right, you're in here with no phones, nothing for the rest of the day. And I guarantee you, I can't say guarantee, but there's a very high probability that this kid from yesterday calling him kid. He was 23. The shooter from yesterday probably rarely had no said to him in his life. And that's a sad sign because there's a lot of young kids like that today.
100%. James Fitzgerald, retired FBI special agent, criminal profiler from the Unabomber case. Manhunt is the series. You want to check that out. Co-host of the Cold Red podcast on Spotify, Apple, all the podcast platforms. And again, author of the series A Journey to the Center of the Mind, his memoir series. Jim Fitzgerald, thanks for joining us as always. Appreciate it.
Okay, Dan. Thanks.
Take care. And James Fitzgerald joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line, which takes us to the end of the program today. We shall see you tomorrow for more on this topic and others. It is now 9 a.m. on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
Transcending faith.